The one to watch tonight.
Old Lady Swiner says you need help. Here I am.
Cold Mountain at 9, here on BBC One. The news now on BBC One with Michelle Hussein.
New plans to shake up welfare. Some unemployed could have their benefits cut. Ministers say the private sector may be drafted in to help find jobs. 2 more British soldiers are killed in southern Afghanistan. Ming's big speech to the Liberal Democrats with mixed messages over power sharing with Labour. And a 7-goal thriller at Upton Park as Spurs send West Ham heading for the drop. Good evening. Single parents who've been out of work for a long time could, as a last resort, have their benefits cut if they don't accept help to get a job. The Work and Pensions Secretary John Hutton told the BBC that while he didn't want to reduce benefits, unemployed people would have to take up offers of support towards getting back to work. It's all part of a major shake-up of the welfare system, as Mike Sargent explains.
We're supposed to be some of the hardest working people in Europe. The economy's been generating millions of jobs and hundreds of thousands have come from abroad to earn a living here. But too many in Britain still find themselves out of work and on welfare. Shuan Leach has experience of being a lone parent living on benefits. She went back to work, but says it was then even harder to make ends meet.
When people come off income support, they lose free school meals and entitlement to free prescriptions and free dental treatment. So there are a lot of costs that have to be factored into going back to work, and I think this is a major problem.
You can hear stories like hers all over the country. There are 4 million people in Britain out of work and living on benefits. The government's big idea to solve the problem is a much greater role for the private sector in finding jobs and, crucially, keeping people in work. That could mean things like paying off their debts, providing more intensive and longer-term training, even helping people to smarten up for interviews, perhaps paying for a haircut or a new suit.
If people don't accept help and advice, then ultimately they could see their benefits reduced or withdrawn altogether.
The status quo, I think, is not defensible. We should be prepared to have an open mind about reform, but it will be based not on the principle that the first thing you do is cut people's benefits. You should never do that until that's the last resort. What you should do is provide the active help and support to get those people back to the labour market.
The Conservatives say the government's tried and failed to reform welfare many times before, but the Tories won't necessarily oppose these plans.
If it passes the crucial test of helping getting people into work more effectively than the old bureaucratic systems have done, then yeah, we'd give it a sympathetic hearing.
In the report due out tomorrow, a controversial proposal aimed at lone parents is expected, forcing them to work once their youngest child reaches 11 rather than the current age of 16.
We think it would be a real mistake to start now cajoling lone parents, even those with older children, into jobs when it's just not right for them.
Greater involvement of the private sector will also be resisted by some, but the government says radical options are needed to get millions of people off welfare and into work. Mike Sargent, BBC News.
2 British soldiers have been killed in Afghanistan, bringing the number of troops who've died there to 50. The soldiers who've not been named were from 2-9 Commando Regiment, Royal Artillery. They died in a rocket attack in the Sangin area of Helmand province. Alistair Leithhead has sent this report.
It's been another violent week in Helmand province. British troops have been clashing daily with the Taliban. They've used thousands of rounds of ammunition and rockets. Sangin has been the main battleground in the last few days, and it was here that the 2 men from 2-9 Commando Regiment Royal Artillery were killed. Their position was struck by a Taliban rocket. 50 British troops have now died since the war began in 2001. The commander of the UK task force to Afghanistan said in a statement, "The loss of 2 of our men in one incident is a deeply saddening blow. I would like to sincerely convey my thoughts and condolences to the men's families and friends at this very difficult time. Our prayers are with them." And there was more violence today. A suicide bomber struck an American convoy in the east of the country. But it was what happened in the aftermath that raised emotions. The US forces opened fire. They said in self-defense after being ambushed. But all the crowd saw was civilians being killed and injured.
The foreign troops have come for the destruction of Muslims. They have not come here for the good of the people. They want to destroy this country.
With every civilian killed, more hearts and minds are lost. Preventing this is something the British troops in the south face every day. The intensity of the fighting has certainly been increasing, and there's a feeling here that that will continue in the coming weeks. A spring offensive is widely expected from the insurgents, but NATO forces here insist it's they who will be taking the fight to the Taliban. Alistair Leithhead, BBC News, Kabul.
There's still no word tonight on the fate of 5 Britons feared to have been kidnapped in Ethiopia. The group, all staff or relatives from the British Embassy, have now been missing for 4 days. Ethiopia claims commandos from neighbouring Eritrea snatched the Britons in the desert, but the Eritrean government has denied any involvement. We can speak live now to Adam Minot, our correspondent, who's on the video phone in northern Ethiopia. Adam, have you learnt anything more?
No, it's been another 24 hours of no firm news about what's happened to the Britons. British diplomats say they are in intense negotiations behind the scenes. They say these negotiations are happening at all levels. They've been speaking to the Ethiopian Prime Minister, Meles Zenawi. I'm in the town which is very close to where the incident happened. It's about 30 miles up the road. This is as close as it's possible to get at the moment. The area around the kidnap site has been sealed off, and British officials arrived here this evening. They are too negotiating to try to get up the road. They're very keen to get to the kidnap site, to try to help, to track down, to see where these 5 Britons now are.
Adam, for now, thank you. The Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ming Campbell, has signalled that he may be willing to strike a power-sharing deal with Labour. In his speech to the party's spring conference, he set out 5 tests for a Gordon Brown-led government. But there's confusion tonight as those close to Sir Ming say his speech had nothing to do with forming a coalition. From Harrogate, Vicky Young reports.
Asserting his authority, that's what Ming Campbell's friends say he's done this weekend. Yesterday he saw off a revolt over nuclear policy. Today he warned rebels in his party that he'd lead from the front. But he began with a swipe at the Tory leader, David Cameron.
It's not your youthful indiscretions that worry me, it's your adult misjudgments. Teenage kicks are one thing, but you've got to grow up sometime. And it's time you admitted your mistakes, particularly your support for the war against Iraq.
Comparing Tony Blair to a man in a supermarket with 2 minutes to go till closing, he turned his fire on Gordon Brown instead.
This man, who has written the cheque since 1997, has had unparalleled influence within Whitehall. Why on earth should we believe that Britain will be better governed if he simply moves from number 11 Downing Street to number 10?
And he set out 5 tests for Mr. Brown. Could he be less authoritarian on crime, give more power to local communities, act on climate change and poverty, and be more independent of America on foreign policy? And Ming Campbell told his party to be ambitious.
I tell you this now. I am not content to lead a party whose sole purpose is opposition. My clear direction, our clear direction, must be government.
A senior Liberal Democrat official has suggested that this speech sets out the broad areas that might form the basis for power sharing with Labour if there's a hung parliament at the next election. And he said that proportional representation, a key principle for Lib Dems, was no longer a deal maker or a deal breaker. That would be a huge shift in policy, but with MPs close to Ming Campbell saying that's not what his speech was about, the conference has ended in confusion rather than celebration. Vicky Young, BBC News, Harrogate.
Britain is heading for social breakdown. That was the Conservative leader David Cameron's message today in a speech to the Welsh Conservatives. He defended marriage and said it was time to speak up for people who are tired of living in a country that's economically rich but socially poor.
I think it's time we recognise that family breakdown is the central factor in the social breakdown we see in our country today. This is not about saying that single parents do a bad job. They don't. but it's simply saying that kids do best when mum and dad are both there for them.
A schoolgirl's in a serious condition in hospital tonight after being swept away by a river on Dartmoor in Devon. The teenager was believed to be in a party of 10 when she fell into the river at Waller Brook. She was airlifted to hospital by a Royal Navy rescue helicopter. No other members of the group are thought to have been injured. Engineers are hoping to remove the last 2 carriages from the site of the Virgin train crash in Cumbria tonight. 7 carriages from the derailed Pendolino have already been taken away for forensic examination. 1 person died and 20 people were hurt in the crash. In America, the race to be the Democratic Party candidate in next year's presidential election is gearing up. Both the frontrunners, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, have appeared today at commemorations of a 1965 civil rights march. Their attendance is being seen as an attempt to attract crucial black votes. James Westhead reports.
God bless this child.
The symbolism is powerful. Hillary Clinton, Democratic Senator, First Lady and would-be President, embracing civil rights leaders on one of their most sacred anniversaries as she tries to reach out to black voters.
Help her run this race with truth and grace.
The real reason Hillary's here may be this man, appearing simultaneously in the church next door. Her rival for the Democratic nomination, the charismatic Senator Barack Obama, gaining ground among black voters. Both are desperate to associate themselves with the civil rights legacy.
Now is the time. Make Selma, Alabama a better city. Now is the time.
It was 42 years ago today that Selma, Alabama was the scene of a civil rights march that ended in violence on what became known as Bloody Sunday, an historic milestone in the campaign for black voting rights. Now it's the scene of a battle for black votes.
So don't tell me I don't have a claim on Selma, Alabama. Don't tell me I'm not coming home when I come to Selma, Alabama.
Our future matters, and it is up to us to take it back, put it into our hands, start marching toward a better tomorrow.
The passion and the emotion, a sign of just how important the black vote will be in what already is turning into a fiercely fought contest. James Westhead, BBC News in Washington.
Now with news of an extraordinary match in the Premiership and the rest of the sport, here's Mary Rhodes. Mary.
Michelle, thank you very much. Good evening. West Ham desperately needed a win today to avoid relegation, but despite leading Tottenham 2-0 at half-time, they lost 4-3. A goal in the final minute of injury time meant a 5th straight defeat in the Premiership, and it leaves West Ham at the bottom of the table. In the words of their manager, Alan Kirbishley, anything that can go wrong is going wrong. Ollie Foster reports.
He's made a really good save.
This could be the moment the bubble burst on West Ham's season. They blew it against Tottenham after being 2 goals up as well. Carlos Tevez, the troubled Argentine, was simply terrific, setting up the first for Mark Noble. Then scoring a stunning free kick. He disappeared into the crowd. West Ham disappeared for most of the second half. Lee Bowyer upended Aaron Lennon, and Jermaine Defoe's penalty gave Spurs hope. And when Teemu Tainio finished off a slick move, they had a bit more than that.
What a goal!
Only for a Spurs old boy Bobby Zamora to strike back with 5 minutes of normal time left. For Spurs, incredibly, there was time left, not just for an equaliser, Dimitar Berbatov's free kick, but the winner in the 5th minute of injury time. Spurs broke free, and though Defoe's shot was saved, Paul Stalteri pounced. When the final whistle goes on West Ham's season, they'll remember this game. Ollie Foster, BBC News.
Blackburn have moved into the top half of the table after winning 2-1 at Bolton Wanderers. The match was decided in a 10-minute period in the second half when Blackburn were awarded 2 penalties. Benny McCarthy took them both and scored them both. Meanwhile, Birmingham City have gone back to the top of the Coca-Cola Championship. They beat Cardiff 1-0 at soaking St Andrews. Sebastian Larsson scored the winner, which moves them a point ahead of Derby. Cardiff stay 7th. In the Bank of Scotland's Scottish Premier League, Charlie Adams scored twice to give Rangers a 2-0 win at Hibernian. Both goals came from free kicks, although Hibs keeper Simon Brown won't be happy with the part that he played in Adam's second goal. Rangers are now 7 points ahead of Aberdeen in the race for second place in the table. Great Britain have finished top of the medals table at the European Indoor Athletics Championships. UK Athletics had predicted 6 medals for the team, but they finished with 10. Well, British medals have been hard to come by in the past few seasons, but it was morale-boosting 3 days in Birmingham. Here's Selina Hinchcliffe.
Jason Gardner's wife, Nancy, is a day overdue. His second child, a son, is expected any minute. So the British athletics team will thank her for hanging on for an extra 6.5 seconds. That's all it took for Gardner to take a record 4th indoor title in a row.
This meant so much to me. I mean, I wanted to do the most out there, I really did. I had really just trust in myself, my coach, and really graft after my disappointed performances due to illness.
With silver for his teammate Craig Pickering as well, the team surpassed all expectations and broke their previous best of 9 medals at these championships. Martin Barnard won bronze in the high jump, and the final 2 medals came in the 400-metre relays. The women with bronze, the men a fortunate gold, because Germany were disqualified for pushing over the Russian on the final bend. British athletics seems to have found its feet at these championships.
This is just a rung on the ladder, and no one should think that we underestimate the challenge that we've got ahead. But it's a nice rung, and perhaps people can now believe in the miracle of medals in 2012.
The World Championships this summer will provide a more accurate yardstick as to where the sport is, but it's certainly heading the right way. Selina Hinchcliffe, BBC News.
And on that positive note, that's all the sport from me for now. Michelle.
Mary, thanks very much indeed. And you can see the latest on all those stories over on BBC News 24, including more on the schoolgirl swept away in a river on Dartmoor. But that's it for now. We'll be back with more from the newsroom at 10 o'clock on BBC One. Now it's time to join our news teams where you are this evening. Bye-bye.
And good evening from Midlands Today. I'm Michael Colley. A legal challenge is being mounted against a decision to close more than 30 care homes and day centres for elderly and disabled people in Staffordshire. The controversial decision by Staffordshire County Council affects 460 people. Now relatives are taking their fight to court to try to keep the homes open. Liz Silver reports.
Nearly 83, Kenneth Edgerton's proud to have once served during the war with the Royal Navy. Since the onset of Alzheimer's, he attends a day centre near his home in Burntwood. It will close and the council cuts. His daughter, who cares for him, relies on 6 weeks a year residential respite help from a local care home. That will also close.
Dad has the opportunity to engage with other people who are elderly that have shared his experiences.
Council cuts like these are not unusual. What makes the Staffordshire decision really stand out is the number of people affected and the speed with which the decision has been made. The lawyer who hopes to see the council in court over this believes a judicial review and injunction on the whole process could succeed.
It's never your only option to kill old people, and let's be absolutely clear, that's what their decision is doing.
The Conservative MP for Stone, Bill Cash, supports the judicial review. He's campaigned to stop the closures.
I feel very strongly indeed that there are many elderly people who, because of the failure by the County Council to run their budgets properly, are being put in a state of very considerable anxiety.
The policy background is to transform social care services to help people maintain independence in their own homes, to have much more flexible packages of care that are fitted around their needs.
As part of the legal case, the families will be citing medical evidence which shows that when very elderly people are uprooted and forced to move late in life, it's likely to precipitate premature death. Liz Silver, BBC Midlands Today.
The highly successful American track and field athletics team are going to make Birmingham their home base in the run-up to the 2012 London Olympics. The announcement came on the final day of the European Indoor Championships. Joanne Riddle has the story.
Thank you to the city of Birmingham for being such gracious host and for working with us.
It's a major coup for Birmingham. They don't come much bigger in Olympic terms than the Americans.
You have more than adequate, great facilities. You have a wonderful high-performance center here, and this city has been athlete-friendly, and that's what we're looking for, because we are athlete-focused, and we just think this would be a great host city for us.
The most successful athletics team in the history of the Olympic Games are no strangers to the facilities Birmingham has to offer. They're seen here at the Alexander Stadium in 2004. The same year they won 25 Olympic medals, including 8 golds in Athens.
We've got a whole range of facilities, but it'll be predominantly at Alexander Stadium. We have a high-performance centre.
We can use the American coaches to sort of educate some of our coaches, especially the club coaches down at Birchfield. If they can get down there, be with them, watch what they're doing. There's a massive knock-on effect for athletics in Britain.
There'd been much speculation that the Chinese team could be based in Birmingham following their delegates' visit last August. This weekend, the eyes of the world have been on Birmingham for the European Indoor Athletics Championships at the NIA. In 2012, the spotlight will fall on the 150 Americans descending on the city. Joanne Riddle, BBC Midlands Today, Birmingham.
Football now. Birmingham City are back on top of the championship table tonight after a 1-0 home win over Cardiff City on a rain-soaked pitch. The only goal came early in the second half when Sebastian Larsson was left in the clear to score his first league goal for 7 months to move Blues 1 point clear at the top of the table. Finally, water everywhere, but not in Sutton Coldfield in North Birmingham. A burst water main meant no supplies for up to 3,000 homes for most of the day. Supplies were restored around 5 o'clock. And that's all from Midlands Today for now. A full rain forecast in a moment. From us for now. Bye-bye.
In the future, we could lose our cars and our cheap flights as carbon taxes become reality. One family tries living without for a year.
Thank God this year is nearly over.
Go green or else. Panorama tomorrow at 8:30 on BBC One.
Hello there. It's certainly been a soggy Sunday, and as more rain falls on saturated ground, it caused some problems for the course of the night and the next 24 hours. With some flooding, in fact. The flood line here, 08459 881188, and wet and windy weather, severe gales, in fact, across parts of Britain. Quite a mucky scene over the next couple of days. What's going on? The main area of low pressure bringing this band of rain, the low sitting to the northwest. That spins with strong to severe gales for northwest parts of Britain. Blustery showers coming in behind, and temperatures 3 to 7 as we start off Monday, with, yes, quite a few showers for many of us. They work their way and then they die for a time because of the next weather system, hot on the heels of this first one. You can see the area of wet weather working in Northern Ireland, southwest parts of England by the end of the day. Maybe some dry spells for a time, but look at this, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Wet weather touching parts of Cornwall, southwest parts of Wales. Mild 11 for Plymouth, we managed a 10 for Cardiff, but the wet weather coming in here. And yes, it's a wet afternoon for most of Northern Ireland. Some heavier bursts of rain too, and the winds picking up also. Western parts of Scotland, just the rain knocking on the Western Isles as we go to the afternoon. But still brighter skies and dry across northeast Scotland, 8 say for Glasgow. And still bright as well, say for much of northeast England for a time, but the wet weather is soon to come in. Moving further south and east across the rest of northern England through the Midlands, thickening cloud here, and also across East Anglia in the southeast, thickening cloud at 12 for London. That weather works through a windy night Monday night. Next couple of days, showers, but mild. That's the weather for now.
An old enemy with a score to settle next here on BBC One in Rough Diamond. The one to watch tonight.
Old Lady Swagger says you need help. Here I am.
Cold Mountain at 9 here on BBC One.
Ta-da!
She's having a divorce party.
So glad to see you. I've been planning this dinner for weeks. I want it to be perfect.
For what it's worth, I never thought you two were quite right for each other.
Don't understand. You're my best friend. Best friends don't do that.
Hotel Babylon. Check in Thursday at 9 on BBC One.
You can no longer buy your TV licence at the post office. Instead, you can get one at over 16,000 local shops, from convenience stores to petrol stations, wherever you see the PayPoint sign. For more information, call 0800 328 2020 or visit tvlicensing.co.uk.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
Timothy McVeigh was executed for the biggest terrorist attack on America prior to 9/11. But are the FBI hiding a much wider plot? Oklahoma Bomb, The Conspiracy File.
Renée Zellweger star in Cold Mountain in an hour. First on BBC One, a traitor in the camp.